Alright guys, welcome to video number 9 out of 10. I'm going to show you how we can connect to the API with Svelte. I need to warn you before you continue watching the video, if you are following, I spot something that I did not add to the routes. So you have to go to each of the routes in the backend and you need to add this line to each of them. This line is just saying that if you connect from any other computer with any different port number, like I'm connecting now, if you see that my Svelte application is connecting on localhost on port 5000 and my backend is running on an Apache server also on localhost, but it's running on port 80, if you don't add this line, you will get an error down here in the developer tools. In the console, you will spot an error that is talking about CORS, which is the cross-domain origin that you need to allow. So I added this line to each of the routes and I got that to work. I will, if I remember while I'm making this video, I will show you how I triggered that. So add this line to this route, you can see it's there, and that route, it's there, and you get the idea, all of them. So let's create the Svelte part now. If you look at the front end that we have, the app.svelte only contains this for now. I will just copy that. I added this just before I started the video. So I just copy that and I'm going to start building the application. The first thing I want to do is I want to go to the global CSS, which is in the front end, public, and here's my global CSS. You actually do have some CSS in this file. Take all of it and delete it. I did this previously, that I started this video because I was running a test. Now, I already have created a CSS. This video is not about CSS, so I will just copy and paste what I built before. And when I save, that's the CSS. I just added some margin paddings, box sizing. I created some elements for the body. And then I have the bottom and the input elements to have a font size and a font weight. And this color that you see here is coming from here. And the color of all the text will be white, that will come from there. So you can just copy this, pause the video, copy these lines of code, and you will be okay. So just to see, if you want to see the whole line, this here just contains that code. So I'm going to close this file. We don't need it anymore. Inside the app.svelte, we need the customers. It's actually the users because we are working with users. I'm going to create here a new file called users.svelte. So I will do this live with you guys very carefully. Inside this users.svelte, I will copy everything from the app, put it in the users. And I will create a div here with an ID of users. I may pause the video several times because I'm going to do this with you guys as I speak. If I encounter a bug, I will pause the video, fix it, and tell you what the bug was. So in here we just say users. When I save, you don't see anything there in the browser because I have not imported this users component. So I will import it. Import users from users.svelte, and over here I will just display whatever the users contain. Save, the users are there. For the users, I want to start fetching all the users and putting these users that comes from the API inside a local front end over here variable. To do that, I will create a store, an Svelte store. So I will create a new file and I will call this data-users.js. This will be my store, so I will import writable. This is the steps you need to do in Svelte to have a store from Svelte/store. And then I'm going to create a variable here called users. And this will be an array. So I say writable, and that will contain, I don't want a semicolon there, the array. Since this users is going to be populated with data coming from the users component, I need to export it. If you don't export it, you will not be able to write to this variable. So that's everything about the users, data-users. Now I'm going to go to the users component and I want to import that variable, the one that we just created. So we're going to import users. Remember, that's the variable that we called here, users. That's the one I'm importing. Import users from, and this will be imported from the data-users.js. Save. If it reloads correctly, it's because you don't have any bugs. I will do the same thing again, save. You can see it's reloading. So those are the users, and so far that's empty. It doesn't contain anything. So I want to populate this as soon as I mount this component. So I will import mount. Let me just quickly remember, yeah, import mount, on mount from, and this will be called from Svelte. And this is just a function that allows me to run as soon as I start this component. So let's mount. Let's put the elements, the users, as soon as I turn this application on, as soon as I run it. So on mount, that will be a function that actually runs an asynchronous anonymous function internally. So this is the anonymous function. It ends there. And as soon as I load this function, I want to point to the URL. And this URL is going to be what I have from Postman. So if you go to the get users route here and then you run it, this is what I want to point to. So I can get these users there. So I will copy this route, all of it, and then I will paste it right in there. Where is that? There. So that's what I want to point to, and this will be the http://localhost. That could be any URL. I'm going to get the response inside a variable called res, and this will be, since I'm doing an asynchronous call, I will await, and then I will use fetch to get everything from the URL. Once I got the response, I'm going to res equals, and then I'm going to await, and I will convert the response to JSON. And finally, I'm going to console.log, and I'm going to log the response. I save. Let's see what we get in the console. So I open this, we get an object with data and then a status. Now, before I forget it, I'm going to go to the back end, which is here. I'm going to go to the get users, which is that route. And I'm going to comment the line that I mentioned at the beginning of the video away. So I'm going to save and then I'm going to reload. And this is what you get out if you don't have this line. So from now on, if you're building any system and then you get this course policy, you have to add this line to the server file, and that fixes it. So keep in mind that now the res actually contains this object. I'm not interested in the object, I'm interested in the individual users. Therefore, I'm going to create a new variable. I will say the data equals res dot, and you can see data. So I'm going to log just the data. All right, so we'll await res data. Let's see. No, data is not defined, of course. Sorry, guys. Let data, res data. So this is the array of users. So this array of users is being mounted via this function, but I need to store this inside the users here, because these users will be actually accessed by the individual user, so the individual user can modify this data. So I'm going to use this users variable from here, and that's what I need to do now. So this is working fine. We understand what it does. So we say this variable called users is an store, so I need to prepend the $, that syntax from Svelte equals data. So I could make this a little bit easier, and then I will just say equals res.data, so I avoid that line of code there. Okay, no errors, that's fine. So now I have my users, and for each user, I want to display one user over here. I don't have the individual user component, so I need to build it. Let's go ahead and build it. I can close this and that. We create the individual user.svelte component. Same as the users. I copy the whole thing, I paste, but I will make a few changes here. Each user will have a class because that will be repeated, and the class will be just the user class. I cannot run the amount on the user because that's not what we need, and we don't need the amount, of course not, but we actually do need the users because these users is the global front-end users database. So we'll leave that there. I will just show a user here. I save. Nothing is displayed there, at least not users there, because I need to call it from here. So now I'm going to import user from, then we're going to call it from the user.svelte component. Save. It reloads, that's fine, but we don't see the user word because we need to actually call it here. So we say that over here we want to use the user variable. And we see one user because I'm calling this one time. But I would like to call each of the users inside this array. Therefore, I will actually encapsulate this user with an each. And then I will close the each, scroll down a little bit. And we're going to say that for each users, remember these users comes from the store, it's this one there as a user. Save it, and we have each individual user. Now each user has an ID, it has a name, and it has an image path. So over here actually, I want to create a variable called user. So this user variable is the one that we are going to pass the data to from the users component. Therefore, we are going to inject data, so we have to export it. That's the syntax. So over here, we want to pass this user equals, and then we can say user like such. So this user is coming from the user component, and this user is the one that I have in here. Pretty weird, right? Let me point with the mouse so you see, because the highlight is confusing. The user component has the variable user, which is this one. And this variable user will contain whatever is inside this user variable, which is that one. You can also destructure this and just do that. That's much easier. So now you have passed the data from here to the user component in the variable user. If that is true, we can just say that we can user.id. And those are the IDs that we have in the database. All right, so this is working fine. Now we need to be able to display the user name, so we can type in that name whatever we want. Since that is going to be inside an input box, because we want to edit the name, we're going to say that the type is text and the value will be whatever I have in the user name variable. You can just do like such, user.name. Save. And this data is coming from the database. As soon as I make a change in here, I will like this change to affect the global users store. So I can just bind the value. Bind the value to the whoever called the user.name, and over here I can also just, I guess I can just bind the value. I don't really need it. I don't need to bind this value for now, so just having the value will probably do. Let me just leave it like such, like that. Okay, so this would be the name, and as soon as I type, I should update the name in the database via the API. All right, so that is a little bit tricky. Let me just think that I will need actually to do an on input event, let me break this into lines so you can see it. That and like that. So these are the properties for the input box. On input, I want to call the function, and I will call it update name. This function does not exist, so we need to build it. Const update name is this function there. Save. It reloads fine. So now that I need to update the name, in here I will need to point to the route that allows me to update the name. And that actually, I already built it in Postman. So let's have a peek of Postman here. And we call it user update username. This is the one what we need. So we just copy this URL and open this code and open that. Like, I'm going to create here a const update route, we can call it. And this equals whatever I just copy and pasted from there. So I will put the HTTP in front of it with the // Now here we need to think about this route that we're using, because as soon as I call this, that's a huge line by the way, but I go all the way here, this ID has to be the user ID, the one actually that we have in this variable here. This user has an ID, so we just add it to this line. Equals plus the user.id. And as soon as I do that, I will show you what this contains. So I will console.log the update route. Save it. And this will be triggered every time I input something on a text box. I input, you can see that's ID 6, ID 7, let's jump to the yes, ID 13. So that's the route I'm pointing to. But that's not enough. I already have the ID, but I also need to actually pass the data that comes from this input box. So to do that, I'm going to create a, if you remember Postman, we pass the values via the body, and that's from data I'm using, and I have a variable called name. So that's what I need to reproduce in the front end with Svelte in this case. So I'm going to create a const. I will call it data equals new form data. This new form data is actually creating a form on the fly. And I will say that the data is going to append the variable called name. This variable name is the one that I have also in Postman. And what I want to pass here is the customer.name. Sorry, I don't have a customer, I have a user. The user.name. So I'm going to console.log just to make sure that I have the correct user.name in there. Save. Inspect the element. Let's do an AAA. You can see that nothing is actually being changed there. BB, nothing changes. Actually, this actually triggers this line, but the name is always the same. And that's because over here, I have populated the input box with a value, but this value, if I change it, is not hooked to the user. I'm going to do bind value. Save, and I will do ace. You can see how the value change accordingly. So if the yes, I delete the E, the S, the E, and the Y, you can see how that takes place. So now I have binded the name to the user. All right, so this is done correctly. You can see how I'm debugging with console.logs. You don't need to delete the console.log. I am deleting it because I don't have a lot of space here, and I'm teaching you these guys. And I'm going to create let's do now we actually need to, yes, we need to point to the route. So I'm going to get the response, and over here I'm going to await, and I'm going to connect via fetch to the backend. But this await has to be inside an asynchronous function, so I will do the async there. If you don't do that, you will have an error. So we are going to point to the update route that's already tested, and we need to pass a JSON object in which we tell that the method is going to be post, and here comes a nice part of it. The body, whatever I pass via post, is going to be what I have in this data variable, which is a form that contains a name, and the name contains that value. And I guess that will be it. So we don't analyze the response that we get back or anything. You could, but for now we just save it. And let's do something, guys. Let's go to the database. And before I even try anything, I'm going to delete the whole data that I have in there. So I'm going to check all. I'm going to delete all the elements. Yes, yes, delete them. Oh, I cannot really click that. Let me go full screen. Yes, delete them. Okay, so I have no data. You can see it's empty. My database is empty. I mean, at least that table is empty. This, that. And I'm also going to delete the pictures that I have in the back end because I have too many actually. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to delete them. I just deleted them. Folder is empty. So I can run a test. Reload the page. I don't have any users. So I'm going to, now I need to actually create a user so I can test it. So let's do that. I'm going to go to the database and we're going to create a user. So let's insert user AA with the image, whatever we call it, aa.png. This image doesn't exist, so we just hardcode that. As soon as we have that there, we will see the AA there. Right now, I don't think about the image. I only concentrate in the name. So over here, I will not have any images in the backend because I didn't upload the image via the form. I just hardcoded that in the database. Reload. Let's change it to AA. Reload. You can see the data is already saved. So I will do AAB, and I'm not going to do much. I don't click anywhere. I just reload. The data is saved. So this is basically saving live data. You can see that. Make a change, reload, reload. Oh, it's not running anymore. Oh, click outside. What's happening, guys? Well, for a second I did panic, to be honest. I was thinking something is wrong, but no, nothing is wrong. If you have followed the video tutorial, count the letters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm only allowing to have the name with 5 letters. So I don't want to change that in my backend, so that's why I was saying that. But if I just do 3, it's done. I do 4, it's working. I do 2, it's working. And if I do 1, does it work? No, it shouldn't, because I only allow to have minimum 2 characters. I do 1 again, reload, and it just keeps the 2. All right, that was nice. So now that I have done this with the name, we need to also display the image here. Okay guys, so took a short break, analyzed what I was going to do to explain this in the easiest possible way to you. So I'm going to go ahead and delete again what I had in the database. You should probably do the same thing. We just check all and delete all of them. And that will do. So now, instead of just populating this with Svelte, with the front end, I'm just going to go quickly to Postman. And I'm going to go to the route called create user. And over here, I'm going to, in the body, pass a name with an image. The user will be AA with a male image for now. I will send, and then I will select the user. I will create the user BB, and then I will select a female image, and then I will send again. So this will actually create the database elements. I have the two elements there. And if I go to VS Code, I should also see, let me just put this on the side. I should also see the images right here because that was built before. So that was the idea. So I have a connection between the images. That is what I was missing. So I think it's more clear now. So I reload, I have the AA and the BB. If I make a change to AA to 3 A's and B's to 3 B's, I reload, it's already saved. So now we can go back to the image part, which is a little bit more complicated, but it's nice to build. I would like to see the image there. Let me just do something quickly, guys. I am going to set up the style here at the bottom of the user component. And I don't want to start doing the style with you because the video will become probably too long. So I just had a style before. I will just copy that from a previous idea I had and I will paste it in there. So this customer is not a customer anymore, it's actually just a user. So you can just go ahead, pause the video, and you will be able to see what these elements do. I have the user class. This is styling the user class. This is for the image that I will play with in a little bit. The input for the user, the button for the user, and the input type file for the user. And this is the important thing, because in a second, you're going to see an image here and you will see what happens with this option that says display none. This is the cool part about it. So the idea is that I will display an image right there. And when I click on it, I will be able to update the image to a new image. So please take a second, copy this into your file, and you can go back to the tutorial here. To be able to show the image, we are going to do a trick here. You can do this with JavaScript and play with it and do crazy stuff, but I will just create a label and then I will close the label. So this label will have a form. Hopefully you guys know about this. And it's going to be unique. So if I just say picture, it has to be unique for each of the pictures. And I will have a lot of pictures for each of the user picture. So I'm going to create something unique, and that will be the user.id. That will make this label unique. I save. You can see how it just reloaded, no issues there. Inside the label, I'm going to throw an image tag. This image tag is going to have a source, and the source will be what I want to know is the path to the image that I have in my server. So I need somehow to create a variable that will contain the path to the image. So let's do the image path. Let me think how I will just put that on here. Yes, let me just look at this other project where I have the image path. Oh yeah, great. Okay, create a variable here. Let's call it, actually it's going to be a const. We're going to call it img path, just to keep it short. And this image path will point to the path where you have the images. In my computer, it's inside localhost. So I have localhost. I have the project called back. That's a folder. Back. You can actually see it from here. I have the folder called pictures. And then I have the /. So over here, the picture name will come. So that will be the img path. That's the first thing I need. So when I need to display the image here, I need to concatenate that img path with the user's image. So to do that, if we create the Svelte component, we say img path. Let me just do it like so for now. So I save, and you can see a broken image. If we inspect this element, we can see that the image points to localhost, back, pictures, but I'm missing the name of the image, the specific unique name. So over here, I need to concatenate with the user dot, and then I need the image of the user. So that was called picture name. Save it. and there we have the images. So how do I know that it was called picture name? Well, because that came from the database. So if you have seen the previous tutorials, how we inserted the data, and if you're in doubt, let me just do this so you guys see it. I'm going to throw right in here. I'm going to create a JSON.stringify, and then I will stringify the user variable that I have from Svelte. So over here I have the ID, the name, and the picture name, and that picture name is coming from there. I hope you guys understand it. Save it. All right, so here comes the nice part. If I click here, I should be able to change this image to something else. So how is that done? Well, I'm going to create now an input box. Let's create this input box, and the type is going to be file. Save and test. You can see that the input box is not being displayed there because I have a display none on the input type file. If I take this away, you can see that it looks horrible, right? So you can choose here. That will work, but it looks just bad. So that's why I have the display none in there. So now that the input box is created, let me do it like this. It will be the type file. So I'm going to have a name for it, and the name is going to be the exact same name that I have in the for there. And I will also have an ID, which will be the exact same thing that I have here and here and there. Save it. So that's my input box. I click on the image, it triggers that. Click on the image, it triggers that. So let me just find quickly where the path to the images is. So when I go here, I will just copy this path because I'm going to be using that in a second. So go back to VS Code, and when I click here, I want to point to that path. That was the idea of it. So if I have a guy and then I select a woman or a female, this should have changed. I reload, nothing changes because I don't have that part of the code just yet. All right, so now we need to do something else. We have the type, we have the name, we have the ID, and we need the onInput event. Oops, there. OnInput. That means when I change something inside the image that I have in there, I want to call the function called update image. I think that the one I call update name, so therefore I call it update image. I save, and this will fail because I don't have that function. So guys, let me just copy this and we paste it, and now we call it update image. Save again, the images are back. So when we update the image, we will need to do a few things. Actually, we need to have something that's a little bit different. So let me just think about it. We will need the URL, of course. So we are going to point to the user, update user image. We will pass the ID, so that stays. This route stays. We are going to pass data via the form data. That also stays because we need it. We are going to append, and here we're going to append picture. This picture comes from the variable name that we call it picture. And what we need to pass here is the new image. So to create a new image, I'm going to create a variable here called picture equals new file reader. This new file reader will allow me to read whatever image I insert in the input file that I created. And as soon as I load that, I need to trigger all these things. So we'll do that picture.onLoad. And then when I load, that's going to be an asynchronous call, async, and that will run. So I have the picture, and then when I load, I'm going to run the synchronous call that will give me an event. So inside this onload, I'm going to run the whole code for the application, all of it. So this will be moved there. Pretty weird, but I will fix it in a second. All right. So as soon as I change the input, I call this function, I create the file reader. When I load the new image, I'm going to run this event. I will point to the new route that, by the way, is pointing to the update user image. I'm going to create a form so I can actually pass the picture. And here I will not pass the name. I'm actually going to pass, I need to connect the variable from here to this part of the code. So I'm going to create a new variable here. Let's create a variable. Let's call it txt picture. Txt file, actually. That will be the file that we want to upload. So over here, I'm going to call that txt file. I can do that because I'm doing this with Svelte. So txt file. And then I'm going to grab files, position of 0. So you have several files. If you have a multi-file upload, you can grab the different positions, but this will be position of 0. But now I need to connect this txt file, which is just a variable pointing to files, and it has to be connected to this file that we have right here. So the connection happens by binding it. So this is also a nice feature from Svelte. You can bind this, and this is this input box, and we're going to bind that to the variable that we call txt file. Save it. It actually reloaded. That was good. So let me walk you through this again, because that's a little bit confusing. I have a variable called txt file. Over here, I say that this element is going to be binded to that variable txt file. So from Svelte, I can point to txt file, and it will actually point to the file that I just created or I just want to upload. Txt file is going to be used here. And then I say I want to grab the files which are in position 0. I'm only regenerating one file, so position 0 will do the job. Sure, I will then post, and the body will be the data. Save. Hopefully this works, or else I will take a break, debug it, and fix it with you guys again. I will take the guy, change it to a female, reload, nothing happens. So time for a break, and then I continue. Alright guys, let's continue debugging this. So we'll just throw here a console.log with the letter X to see if I'm getting there. Female, I do see the X. Let me just make sure that that was the correct thing. I do see the X. So if I put this line inside the picture load, like so, let's see if I get the letter X. I don't. So looking at this variable picture, I have a new file reader, which will allow me to read the new file that I want to upload from there. And when the picture is loaded, I should call this X. All right. I can see the bug here. I open this curly bracket, I close. So over here, I need to somehow tell what the picture is connected to. I will say picture read as data URL, and I need to read this file here. Let me just save it. I'm going to do a quick test again, console.log, the letter X again, and just in case, I'm going to return right away because I don't want to continue this part of the code. So take the guy, female, I see the X, just to make sure that I'm in the right place, I will do that. Take the female, I get into a female, I get the X's. So this is working fine. This is what I needed. So the picture, as soon as it is changed, this update image, this picture will be changed with a file reader. it will read whatever I have in the file input box, and then this will be triggered. Really confusing, by the way. I did not invent this code. This is plain JavaScript to upload an image. So let's try it. But I can also see a bug that's coming soon. If I change this female to a male, let's do that. And then I click OK. Now I see the X's. I didn't save this file, that's why. All right. So I will show you what I'm thinking. If I take the female, I convert it into a male, and then I click open, this data will be sent to the API, but I think that this image will still be a female. Let me try it. Yep. So from origin has been blocked by the course policy. All right. You guys know what you should do now. So I have to go and fix that also. Over here, I have an other error that says not found. That's pretty good. I like this, so we can debug it together. It takes some time, but it's nice. The pictures, nothing really happened there. Let's take the update user picture. And then I have here the update user image. You can see the first bug, right? So let's fix that first. We go to the URL here, update user image. It should be called picture, right? So I will do picture, save it, select the female, convert it into a male, and actually I don't see any errors here, so we just reload, and then you can see the male there. I will take the male, convert it into a female, and then I will reload, and then the female pops up there. But that's the bug I was telling you about. It's a logical bug. I am missing to convert this image on the fly to the new image. So to do that, let me create here a new variable. Let's do it together. We have the txt file. I'm going to create the txt picture. So this picture is going to be hooked to the picture right there on the fly. To hook it, let me do this txt picture that I have here. Yeah, over here in the picture on load, we're going to hook it. So we're going to say txt picture, that's a variable. We're going to set the attribute of this picture, and the source, the src source, is going to be the event.target.result. This is plain JavaScript. I am just saying the following with this command. I'm saying to the txt picture variable, set the attribute to be the source, and the source will be the event that trigger this function here, which is the picture upload. The event, go to the target and get the result, which is the new uploaded image. But before I continue, this txt picture is just a variable right now in Svelte, which is that one. But that needs to be connected somehow to the front end. So if we go all the way, well, not to the front end, but to this input image element. So if we go to this image element, we're going to bind this, that will be this image, which is that one or that one. We're going to bind this to the txt picture variable. Save it, and let's give it a try. Female becomes a male, male becomes a female. Reload. Now male becomes a female. Reload, and it's working fine. Now this female is going to be called AAA, and this female is going to be called BBBBB for Bs. Reload, the data is there. So this is looking quite nice, guys. The last thing we're going to do is the delete element. So we need a trash can there. So this should be quite simple. So after the label, we're going to create a button. And if you have been following my previous tutorials, I always like to play with a trash can. So I will just put the trash can that I have taken, the waste basket. It's just an emoji. And over here, I'm going to say that Let me just save it, test it. That's the emoji. And on click, we're going to call the delete user function, which doesn't have, I don't have it. That's why it crashes. Let's create it up here. Const, a little bit up there. Const delete user equals a function. Let's save it. So this should pop up again. Yes, the data is back. And what we're going to do is we're going to delete the user. So as soon as we delete the user, we have to do an asynchronous call because we're going to use fetch here. So we're going to do async, and we're going to create a const to the delete route. So I will call this delete URL. You can call this, guys, whatever you want. And we need to copy actually a route that already exists in my system. I will just take this route, which is very long, copy it. Let's copy the whole thing from there with the single quotes. And this will be placed inside the delete URL there. I will point to the back end. You can see it there. And we're not going to call the update user picture anymore. We're going to call the route that we call delete user. Delete-user.php, and the ID will be the exact same ID that we have from the user. Let's pass this data via fetch. So we're going to just say let the response is going to be, and then we're going to await for fetch to do its job in the delete URL. Then we can get the response as JSON if we want it. Then we can await the rest.json. So we convert the response to JSON, and this will be an await. Then we are going to, this will delete the customer from the back end because we're pointing to this RESTful API, but we also need to delete the customer from the front end. And if you guys recall the beginning of the video, we have the customers that were coming from the customers array that we had in this data store. These users, actually, not customers, users. That's what I mean when I say customers. We need to delete them from these users. And these users were used in the users Svelte component. You can see that we use the users from here. And these users allowed us to populate the user. So therefore, I'm going to use that again, these users here in the user component. I have to delete it from the users store as well. So when I delete a user, it goes away from the backend, and it has to go away from the users store. So I would say that the users store now equals users.filter. And what I will filter is, I will just get this as an item. A user will be an item, not to confuse you with calling this anything else. Yes, a user is an item. Let me just break this into line. So, and what I will do is I will say that the user ID not equals the item ID. I'm just filtering the user. Save it, and then I will test it again. I will change the name to AA, the name to BB, reload. I will select the mail, reload. I will select the mail, reload. I'm going to delete AA. It's gone, reload, and that's it, guys. So I know that this video about Svelte is a little bit confusing if you're seeing this the first time, but I have other videos about it, so you can go and check it out. With this, I finished video number 9, and my next videos will be with MongoDB and Node.js, and obviously I will rebuild the whole thing with Svelte again. Guys, I hope that you like all this and you will subscribe to my channel because I have a lot of things I would like to teach you. Thank you very much.